love to hear what you have to think about that, because he's one player that I think with the addition of Decker, Delaney Walker, and Corey Davis there, that I think just with his skill sets, he's going to be a point machine.
Yeah, I agree with Mariota, and I had him on my team last year. Besides, to me, the thing about Mariota is, can he stay healthy the entire year? He's a shorter guy. He's a guy that can get injured, which I think is the reason why he's probably not as high for some people. But if he's healthy, he has the ability to run and pass, and you know that is what you want in a quarterback, somebody that can do both, because that gives you both points, that gives you rushing touchdowns and passing touchdowns. One person I would say to definitely look out for is Dak Prescott. Obviously, he had a great...
Yeah, I think he is. I think he's going a lot lower than he should be.
Yes. He had a great year last year. That was his rookie season. People say he's going to have a sophomore slump, which I think he will. I think he'll have a slight slump, but for the most part, he is studying the playbook like crazy, studying the defenses like crazy, and I don't see a huge fall for Dak. So I think he should actually be in. I'm not going to say top 5. I'm not going to go that far, but I think top 10. He should definitely be there, and that's someone that I think is going to go higher probably than a lot of people think.
I definitely could agree with that. And I think he's someone that, I mean, where you could draft him, I mean, he could be a steal, I think.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he is someone that, I mean, depending on how the Zeke situation plays out, I mean, that could affect his value a little bit here or there, but I think he has a lot of weapons around him, and he is a very dynamic player.
He is. Yeah, he should definitely be higher than I think a lot of people have him. So that's the quarterbacks. Let's go over the running backs here in the top 5. Who would be your top 5 as far as running backs go?
Top 5. Obviously, there's more or less the 1A and 1B. You got, Bell and Johnson there sitting at the top of the board. The number 3 spot, I think it's been flip-flopping around. I mean, it's like you have McCoy there, you have Ajayi there, but I really think Melvin Gordon makes a case to be up there as well, and I really think he could be in that slot by the end of the year. But I think after Johnson and Bell, it's really like McCoy, Ajayi, Gordon, and Freeman right there in the top 5 for me.
Okay. I like that top 5. I think the biggest thing out of this top 5 is AP. Adrian Peterson is nowhere to be found, which I understand his age is definitely going to catch up to him this year, but I think he's still top 10. I think I've seen a lot of boards where he's not even top 10, maybe not even 15. So I think you could throw AP in the mix. Also, the Ezekiel Elliott situation is truly going to affect what happens to anybody that chooses to draft him or chooses not to draft him. If he's suspended for 6 games, obviously, he might not even get drafted at all. If he gets reduced to 2...
I still see him as a solid second-round draft, man. Second round.
Because I mean,
you could step him away if depending on when he's out. If he's back for towards the end of the season, he's going to be coming back like mad and like he's going to be ready to go.
Right. And
he can be a workhorse at the end of the season for you when other running backs are potentially their legs are getting a little tired. Or it's like you could, if he's serving the suspension towards the end, at the beginning of the season, he is going to be out there busting ass. And he is going to be putting up the numbers.
And I think you can compare Zeke right now to Le'Veon Bell from last year. It was a question mark. Where would you take him? You knew he was going to get suspended, but I still drafted him. I think I drafted him in the second round, probably like you said. But I think the amount of games...
There were still people drafting him in the first round last year.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. That's true.
Yeah.
So you can compare those
Do you
two.
do you have any lower ranked, like AP is on that list for me of like kind of guys that are going to go in much later rounds than they should. Like, do you have anyone else? Like I have like a couple of there's a couple of people that stand out to me that I think could be like steals this year, and they could drop because they're not giving as much credit. And AP is definitely one of those that I think he's going to drop to like the third round, fourth round in some draft leagues.
Yeah.
And like it could be an absolute steal.
Yeah, definitely. I think one person would be, got him right, CJ Anderson from Denver. I mean, a lot of people. I don't know how people aren't talking about him. Right. I mean, he was great last year. Before the injury, he was great. Devontae Booker came in, kind of stole the thunder because CJ Anderson didn't come back. But another name is, let me see, I have him, Latavius Murray.
Latavius Murray, yeah.
I think the job is his right now in Minnesota. Now, depends on how well Dalvin Cook does, but to me, Latavius Murray is a good pickup. He should be able to come right in and take off where AP left off. He had a great year years with the Raiders. So to me, that's two guys that you should look at and will be steals in the draft.
Yeah, and one other player that I think is getting overlooked just because of the team he's on, but I think if he stays healthy, and I think he's just going to get a ton of workload and he's the guy there, is going to be Powell on the Jets. I mean, I think that he's overlooked because he's on the Jets, and everyone is just like, yep, the Jets aren't going to win a game this year. But I think he is still going to be able to put up numbers. And in terms of fantasy, pure fantasy, not football, like football and fantasy can be very different sometimes.
Right.
Like,
very true.
As pure fantasy, he could be a guy who puts up numbers still.
Oh, yeah. And it seems like every single year, Powell is on that list of pickup guys. And I look at it, I'm like, man, should I get Powell? Should I not get him? I go through my head so many different times with picking him up because he's always on the list. He's always on the pickup list. I don't remember anybody that's actually drafted him, but he proves to actually be a quality fantasy running back. And that's what definitely, that's a good one right there. Definitely somebody to look at. And once again, we're talking with Jay of Sit or Start Fantasy Football. Go download the app today. Use the code BS3. Enter in for some great prizes. So that was running backs. Let's talk about wide receivers, which, I mean, to me, the top 10 is so flexible. Like the top 5 really is it's almost like it's a top 5, but it's 10 players because most of them are ties. That's kind of what I see.
Yep.
I don't know if you're thinking the same thing.
No, I mean, this year it seems like there is a lot of top tier guys that any one of them could just be the number one, and then like in the top 5, like in the top 10, it's like any one of them could be right there at the top with the rest of them. I mean, everyone obviously talks about Antonio Brown, Beckham and Julio Jones as like, the top, 3, the superstars, this, that. But really, in terms of like a top 5, and even in some draft boards and stuff, I've seen him go down to even 6 to 10. And in one ranking, I saw him as number 11, and I couldn't believe it, is Michael Thomas. Yeah. And Michael Thomas in New Orleans, I do not understand why he is not right now consistently top 5 across the board. His season last year was absolutely incredible. He was a top 10 player last year, and he did it as a wide receiver 2 behind Cooks. And like, I don't know, are people forgetting this? I mean, he had 121 targets, and he was really the the wide receiver too. And now he has Breeze throwing to him, and he is the guy. Cooks is gone. I mean, his targets can go up. He is a tall, great, like fast receiver, and he's got the skill sets. And I could see him being in the top 5, if not the top 3 this year.
Yeah. One thing I think is, and I've heard this on other shows, is Jordy Nelson. A lot of people put Jordy Nelson in the top 5, which I'm going to say it right now, I'm against it. I don't think it should be top 5 because you don't know if he's going to be healthy, just plain and simple. It's hard for me to really believe that he can play a full year unless I actually see it. Now, he did it last year. I don't think he missed any games, so you can think about that. But, yeah, AB, Julio Jones, Odell Beckham Jr., those are kind of people there. I think Dez is going to have a great year. Amari Cooper, to me, Amari Cooper should be top 5. I think he's Derek Carr's go-to guy, and the only reason why he wouldn't be a top 5 is if Derek Carr somehow gets injured. But
I completely agree with that. He is one of those guys that I feel if he had Derek Carr is good, but if he had a better quarterback and he was in a better program, I mean, that is a guy who he's unbelievable. Like he pulls balls down and like he breaks off from people. Like he is an incredible receiver.
Yes. All right. So kind of what we did with the running backs. Is there any sleepers, anybody that is lower on the list that should not be as low as they are?
I say there's a couple of people that I think are lower than I would have expected, and one of them is Willie Snead. I think that in a lot of boards, he's down around I want to say around the 30 mark or so in terms of wide receivers, and I think he could really have a breakout year and probably get around 120 targets or so this year. And so I think he can be pretty undervalued in the system he's in right now.
Yeah.
And another player that I've been looking at as you could probably get him much further down is Tyrell Williams. He is playing in a system with Mike Williams, but Mike Williams right now has a lingering kind of injury going on. And Tyrell Williams, he's a pretty dynamic receiver, and he averages, like I looked up a stat on Tyrell Williams as I was researching him the other night. In 2016, he averaged 2.5 yards of separation between him and coverage when he was targeted in passes. I mean, that's ridiculous. 2.5 yards is like he gets separation, and I think his targets and workload, especially if Mike Williams still has this lingering, I think it's like a back injury right now. I think he could be a really late round steal.
Yeah, and I think the biggest wide receiver that is going to have a breakout year is Terrell Pryor. A lot of people, he is going to be a monster this year. My goal is to definitely draft him. I talked to, on the last show, I talked to Mitchell Tesler. He's actually covering the Redskins for CSN, and he was saying he is just beasting over all of these corners, and he's found his niche. You know, you talk about a guy who went from quarterback to wide receiver, which it's not easy to do. People think it's easy to do, but it's not. And he has made a name for himself. So that is someone I'm really, really looking out for. And I think he's going to be a top 10 probably midway through the season. He's going to surprise a lot of people. And he's going to be a pickup probably in who knows, maybe the first couple rounds for sure.
Yeah, I was going to say probably I would say him like second rounds, probably late second rounds maybe, depending on the draft you're in. I think you could definitely like get him, and it would be like a really good pick in like the mid to late second round.
Yeah, definitely. All right, so let's go over to